What's up, everyone? It's Dakota, and today I'm going to be going over the last Red Mythic to be released in Core 21, and it's she, he, it, they, whatever it is a doozy. Terror of the Peaks is a 5 mana, double red and 3 for a 5/4 dragon with flying. Spells your opponents cast that target Terror of the Peaks cost an additional 3 life to cast. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Twin Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. So this card, in a vacuum, is very powerful. Warstorm Surge on a 5/4 flying body that also essentially does a, can't even remember the name, a Thunderbreak Regent effect stapled onto it essentially, except that your opponent has to have 3 life to cast the spell to even target it, because it forces them to pay an additional 3 life to cast their spell. So I'm sure there's some situations I can come up with it. There's none that I could even think of, but the fact that it makes it a cost and things like that definitely is definitely better than just this dealing 3 damage to them, because they could prevent damage from a source, things like that. So really cool, really powerful card. Also, just being a 5/4 flyer for 5 is pretty powerful. So why am I saying in a vacuum that this card is very powerful? Because in standard, this card is probably going to be borderline unplayable. And the reason why is because of Elspeth Conquers Death and 3 mana Teferi. 2 cards that can interact with it and and basically get around the additional cost to, essentially, like, losing the 3 life isn't going to happen, because technically, when Elspeth Conqueror Death enters the battlefield, it is an ability of the card, not the spell itself targeting Terror of the Peaks. So you don't have to pay 3 life, or your opponent doesn't have to pay 3 life. Teferi Time Raveler, -3, doesn't need to pay any extra mana or anything like that. Also, on top of the fact that we have Wilderness Reclamation and 4 mana Wraths, like we have 2 4 mana Wraths in standard for, at least 3 more months, a little over 3 more months. So really, there's just so much that, like, interacts with this thing without targeting it, to where you don't really get any value for it. When you tap out for your 5 mana 5/4 on turn 5 or turn 4, whatever deck you're playing, or if you're playing like Llanowar Elf or Gilded Goose in some cases, I'm sure you need to do something when it impacts the board. That's why cards like Fires of Invention and Wilderness Reclamation are cards that themselves don't do anything, but they enable things to happen. And this card, while it's doing something, it's on the spectrum of doing something, the thing that it does just doesn't line up well with the cards that people already want to play. Now, it'd be different if people were playing those cards in response to this card being played, but people already want to play Elspeth Conquers Death. People already want to play Teferi Time Raveler. People already want to play cards like Wilderness Reclamation, where this just doesn't line up against them all that great. And while the last ability of just, Warstorm Surge, like a creature entering play, like it just deals damage. This deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, is great. I could see decks where, like, you play this and you just have like a giant Cranko and you attack and you put like 5-6 goblins in play. You 6 your opponent, and then they also have like a million damage coming at their face. There's definitely those situations. I would say probably in more the realm of jank, but I also think in the realm of possibility. This card just doesn't do that much. And it's kind of a testament to how standard and how Wizards has pushed up the power level of standard, and that while there's like a plethora of great targeted removal, which is like fine, you know, like if someone murders riders like Terror of the Peaks, like they're going to lose 5 life. You know, they're going to pay 3 life to cast it, and then they're going to, you know, lose 2 life when their rider resolves. And if it doesn't resolve, then they're in deep trouble because Terror of the Peaks is going to be swinging over 5, and then possibly like putting another giant fatty into play, like a Rotting Regisaur or any of like the big green beaters that are in standard right now. Like, I don't know, this card to me, if you untap with it, and you know you're probably playing like a Gruul style or maybe like a Jund or a Teamer style deck where you know you're just playing creatures that have high power, and you know you can deal a lot of damage indirectly and then just have to worry about dealing the last few points, you know, in the air, either with terror or with any of the other big fatties that you're playing. I just don't think in a world where Uro and all these other cards exist, no matter how much praise that I give this card, no matter how much I really want to play this thing when it's in standard, I don't think for the immediate future it's going to be good enough to see main deck play. Maybe they'll stay playing the sideboard in standard. I don't think it's going to see main deck play in standard. Pioneer could be a totally different story, but it's got to compete with cards like Glorybringer, and Glorybringer just does a lot. And Glorybringer went from being really played to not really played at all either. And the top decks in the format really don't care about this card. Like targeting by paying an additional 3 life, either they're gonna get rid of it and like the 3 life's worth it because then they're just going to kill you, or they really just straight up don't care about it and they're allowing you to have this 5 mana 5/4 that has a wall of text on it that just is going to die on your, you know, you're going to die with it still on the battlefield and having not done a single thing. So my verdict on Terror of the Peaks, if you're going to pre-order this card, it's probably not going to see any sort of movement financially. It's probably not going to see really a lot of play until after rotation hits in standard, or some bans happen in maybe even like modern or in Pioneer and things like that. This card is very powerful. Don't get me wrong. It's probably going to be one of the best creatures as far as like stats and things like that post rotation. But until we get to rotation, there's just going to be a ton of creatures that outclass it, and the removal is going to just completely decimate this thing. And, you know, obviously there's other creatures that that we have in standard, like Uro and Hydrate Krasis, that either die to, well, in Uro's case, gets exiled or bounced by both of them, and Hydrate Krasis gets bounced by Teferi but doesn't get hit by Elspeth Conquer's Death. Those cards do something when they come into play. Uro, obviously, gaining you life, drawing you a card, and letting you ramp. With Hydrate Krasis, you're obviously getting some amount of cards and some amount of life, and you're getting a big body too. This card just doesn't do either of those things, and those cards are going to be those kinds of card advantage and things like that. That kind of tempo is going to be great in standard for at least the next 3 months, while this card is not going to see much play. So I'm done rambling on about Terror of the Peaks. Again, great card, just not going to be all that impactful immediately. It's definitely going to take some time for this thing to blossom and become the monster I think that it can be, and the potential that it does have in the upcoming standard format when rotation hits. So if you guys enjoyed spoiler videos like this, and there's a card that you specifically want me to go over and talk about, please leave it in the comments of this video. Also, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing to the channel and ringing the bell so you know when I upload videos. I'm going to be trying to upload a video every day this week as we wind down spoiler season for Core 21. Also, just as like side note to all this, go check out my Twitch channel. Follow me on Twitch. I try to stream as much as possible, usually 2 to 4 times a week for at least, I'd say, 5 to 10 hours throughout the week. Just some extra content to put out there on top of uploading daily. So be on the lookout for that stuff. And thank you all for watching. Thank you for hanging out, checking out the video. I hope to see you all in the next one.